officials received radio challenges from China during a resupply mission to the Ayungin Shoal over the weekend.
Philippines Passport Yonada. This is China Coast Guard 5205. Your vessel has entered the sea area of Heydarian and the jurisdictions of the People's Republic of China.
Chinese Coast Guard 5205. This is a resupply boat tasked by the Philippine government to bring provision to troops stationed in BRP Sierra Madre. Over.
Your vessel has entered the sea area of Heydarian and the jurisdictions of the People's Republic of China. In the spirit of humanity, we are allowed to support food and water for your elderly worship number 57.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
The United States is backing the Philippines in calling out China over the continued presence of Chinese militia vessels in the West Philippine Sea.
The Chinese Coast Guard also continues to challenge Philippine military troops out on resupply missions. Brian Castillo with the big story.
Philippines Passport Yonada. This is China Coast Guard 5205. Your vessel has entered the sea area of Heydarian and the jurisdictions of the People's Republic of China.
This was just a portion of the radio challenges received by the AFP Western Command from the Chinese Coast Guard. During a resupply mission in Ayungin Shoal on December 17, Filipino soldiers were delivering water, food and Christmas packages to troops assigned at the BRP Sierra Madre outpost when they saw Chinese vessels shadowing the supply boat.
We have received your foreign affairs notice, and you need to transport in strict accordance with the notice. You are not allowed to transport the architecture goods to your worship.
The AFP WestCom stated their intention in the Ayungin Shoal, which prompted China to allow the mission in quote, spirit of humanity.
Chinese Coast Guard 5205. This is a resupply boat tasked by the Philippine government to bring provision to troops stationed in BRP Sierra Madre. Over.
Your vessel has entered the sea area of Heydarian and the jurisdictions of the People's Republic of China. In the spirit of humanity, we are allowed to support food and water for your elderly worship number 57.
For AFP Western Command spokesperson Major Cheryl Tindog, this is a clear evidence of China's encroachment on the country's territorial waters and a violation to our sovereign rights. But despite the incident, the resupply mission was deemed successful. WestCom said resupplying the needs of the troops at the BRP Sierra Madre is important, as they serve as the Philippines' stronghold near China's military garrison in the Panganiban or Mischief Reef. The Chinese embassy in Manila has yet to issue a statement on the matter. Chinese vessels also continue to swarm Spratly Islands. Photos from the AFP Western Command showed Chinese vessels gathered in Sabina Shoal in Palawan last month. As the Philippines' longest-standing defense ally, the United States was quick to condemn the presence of Chinese militia vessels along Spratlys. In a statement, the U.S. Department of State said that the reported swarms of Chinese ships in Iroquois Reef and Sabina Shoal interfere with the livelihood of Filipino fishing communities. The U.S. agency also slammed China for disregarding other claimant states. The U.S. also shared the Philippines' concern over the unsafe encounter between the Philippine Coast Guard and the Chinese Coast Guard. This after the Chinese Coast Guard reportedly took by force an object suspected to be Chinese rocket debris. China has since denied these claims, saying friendly negotiations took place. As the Philippines continues to have more and more threatening encounters with China in the West Philippine Sea, the national government has since filed close to 200 note verbale against China, a third of which were sent by the Marcos Jr. administration. For News 5, Brian Castillo, we are One News.
To help us understand more about the issue in the West Philippine Sea, we have political analyst and international affairs expert Richard Heydarian over the phone. Good evening. Welcome to the big story, Richard.
As always, a pleasure.
So, this is not necessarily surprising. We see episodes of this from time to time, but always the question is, why now? And do you, in particular, see an escalation of these incidents, and what is China trying to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, una-una nakikita natin dito, no, when it comes to the West Philippine Sea issue, this is the defining feature of our bilateral relationship with China. So under former President Duterte and under more China-friendly administration in the Philippines, the essential theme was this, that, you know, our relationship with China should not be defined by one single issue, which is the West Philippine Sea, and that we have to focus on other areas of potential cooperation and shared interests. But the reality is that the West Philippine Sea issue constantly stares at us, no? And it's an issue that's always explosive and always is something that resonates with the Filipino people, because we in the Philippines really feel that we're being bullied by China, and that China's, you know, claims that they're benign power in the region is constantly being questioned because of their behavior. They're on the ground in the West Philippine Sea. But the second important element here is that we have seen over the past 4 or 5 months, and Robin, I and you have been talking about this, and you know, throughout different programs throughout the past few months, you know, the Marcos administration has been really a big surprise. It's a big surprise in a sense that while it has continued the friendly rhetoric towards China, talking about a new golden age of bilateral relations, just like the Duterte administration and the Arroyo administration in the past, it has really pivoted towards the United States in ways that is much faster and much more consequential than many people anticipated. So we had no less than U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris there in Palawan just the other month. And as far as the Philippines and U.S. are concerned, we're giving them, or we're set to give them, access to many important bases across the Philippines, from Palawan, potentially all the way to Cagayan, Isabela, with huge consequences for China's strategy over Taiwan and the West Philippine Sea. So kaya parating tanong dito is, anong maging reaction ng China? Medyo ipit ang China, because on one hand, China wants to maintain good relationship with the Philippines under a new administration, initially thinking that Marcos Jr. would be a continuity candidate when it comes to foreign policy. They had reasons to believe that, but clearly things are very different 6 months in to the Marcos administration. But at the same time, of course, China cannot just wait forever, and I think China wants to also express its displeasure. Hindi sila natutuwa dito sa direction ng Marcos administration foreign policy, and they feel that this new administration is far friendlier to U.S. than they perhaps anticipated. Kaya yan ang tinitignan natin on the ground.
But Richard, what does this mean for President Marcos' upcoming trip to Beijing? He will be meeting with President Xi Jinping in China early next year. What kind of footing will he have given these developments?
Yeah, so in the past, ang tanong kasi is, how much does the Beijing government, you know, the Zhongnanhai, their version of Malacanang, have a say on the day-to-day behavior of their Coast Guard vessel and militia vessel? Of course, Robbie, yung militia vessel ng China ay hindi sila professional, although officially they're under the command of the PLA Navy of China. We know that a lot of them are sometimes rogue, no, in terms of their behavior, including yung nangyari noong 2019 sa Reed Bank, or at least that's some of the claims that we're hearing. So one big question is, how much of what's happening on the ground, including aggressive actions by their Coast Guard and their militia, is a reflective of the policy of the Chinese government? That's always one question we have. The other one is that what is the signal that China is trying to send to the Marcos administration ahead of his trip to China, assuming the Beijing government, especially Xi Jinping, has full control and full brief of what's happening on the day-to-day basis? Robbie, one thing I remember is that back in the day, you know, I cover international affairs, and one of the fascinating things to me, or sometimes really puzzling and troubling thing, is that, you know, when President Xi Jinping visited China a few years ago in India, it was the first visit he had with Narendra Modi, the very nationalist, tough-talking leader of India. They had extremely chummy, you know, really friendly conversation. But while they were having a nice conversation, the PLA, you know, the Chinese military was bullying the Indian counterparts there in the Himalayas, where they also have territorial disputes. So we have this history whereby China tries to play, or kind of plays bad cop, good cop, during a high-level meeting or perhaps in the run-up to the meeting. So I know there are people are saying, wait lang, tumutulong ba ito dun sa meeting ni Marcos with China? But I could argue that perhaps ang ginagawa ng China, if this is really intended, this is really getting the green light from Beijing, is that they're reminding Marcos Jr. that, hey, we have also options here. If you keep on playing it nice with the Americans, if you keep on giving the Americans access, we can punish you. We can get back at you. So yun yung konteksto po kung saan pwede natin maintindihan or pwede natin magkaroon ng matinding, maayos na pagsusuri dito sa mga latest developments sa West Philippine Sea.
All right, thank you for weighing in on the situation on the West Philippine Sea. That was political analyst Richard Heydarian. Right after the break, more and more Filipinos are having trouble with their daily commute this holiday season. Groups are now calling on the LTFRB to act on the increased demand for public transport as well as pricing issues. We'll talk more about that with LTFRB Officer in Charge Jocelyn Tataro when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're watching The Big Story here on One News. The holiday rush has forced commuters to find new ways to book rides in order to reach their destinations. Gerard de la Peña tells us more in this report.
Commuting is a daily struggle for Troy, who resides in Quezon City but works in Makati. Just last Saturday, he had to attend to a commitment. But since taxis and TNVS are hard to come by, he resorted to booking a ride through a dating application.
Halos magto 2 hours na kaming nagbo-book dito sa bahay. Sabi ko, kailangan ko nang isipan ng discard ito. So, nag-open ako ng Grindr. Tapos sabi ko, maghahanap ako ng may coaches profile picture. So yun, minessage ko siya. Sabi ko, can you drive me to the place? Tapos babayaran ko.
This is not the first time that Troy tried looking for other ride options. He also taps carpooling groups on social media.
Everyday naman nakikipagsapalaran tayo, 'di ba, pagkalabas natin sa gate natin. So it just so happens na ako pinipili ko makipagsapalaran sa mga hindi public transport. Kailangan talaga medyo creative ka in thinking of ways how to get around.
For the LTFRB, hiring private vehicles as a public transport alternative is not just unsafe, it's also illegal.
In fact, may mga na-apprehend na po kami doon sa mga social media postings po na yon. So patuloy din po yung aming anti-colorium operation po doon. Marami na pong kotse, sedan po na na-impound.
The agency admits that there is a supply problem. However, they have yet to act on Grab Philippines' request to open more TNVS slots. For now, they are asking taxi operators to deploy more units. They are also issuing a stern warning against choosy drivers. Under Oplan Isnabero, taxi drivers who discriminate on passengers will be fined.
Marami po talagang pasaherong lumabas po ngayong holiday season po, no? Kaya nakikipag-coordinate kami sa mga operators na sana dagdagan pa nila ng pag-employ po ng mga drivers kasi may scarcity po tayo ng drivers. So patuloy po yung recruitment process po nila.
The agency is also calling on the public to report drivers who are either refusing or overcharging passengers. For News 5, Gerard De La Peña, We Are One News.
Here to discuss the increase in demand of public vehicles this holiday season, we have with us over the phone LTFRB Officer in Charge Jocelyn Tataro. Good evening and welcome to the big story.
Yes, Ms. Gretchen. Good evening.
All right, Ms. Jocelyn, the LTFRB has admitted to a lack in supply of TNVS. So what would you say is keeping us from opening up slots, giving permits, increasing the number of drivers and vehicles on the road?
Evaluation of TNVS supply is not an overnight process. We are currently, actually just recently the board has issued board resolution number 185 opening additional TNVS slots which will be open for application on January 9, 2023.
Pero kung January 29, January pa po yung...
January 9, I'm sorry. January 9, 2023.
But in any case po, January, does that mean that this is anything on that front is too late for this Christmas season?
Hindi naman po, not necessarily kasi ang TNVS naman at saka yung demand po natin ng mga public utility vehicles ngayon, tumataas na po talaga. Hindi po kaagad tayo makapag-open ng mga ruta kasi nga, or TNVS slots kasi nga po, we need to study po yung supply and demand. Kaya po, ngayon po tayo nakapag-open pa lang.
Pasensya na po, ulitin ko lang po, I didn't quite get that. But what you're saying is we are already starting the process to open up more slots. But if we heard you right, that means that whether it's a demand issue or a supply issue or obviously both, January 9 pa, eventually mapoprocess lahat yan. So what does that mean po for the Christmas season na talagang abnormally high, well seasonally abnormally high ang demand?
Yes po, aside from TNVS, we also are out to open additional routes for PUBs, PUJs and UVEs for the coming days.
Alright. Yun nga po, no, medyo hirap po tayo. There's also, in the report was mentioned, the scarcity of drivers. Take us through that. Is it because of high traffic? Sobrang traffic lang po sa daan, kaya wala pong gustong bumiyahe. Ano po ba yung, saan po nagkakabuhol-buhol?
Yes ma'am, for our monitoring po, lahat po actually ng mga major roads po natin, talagang mataas po yung traffic congestion. Actually, yan din po yung isang limitation po namin sa mga pag-open po ng mga ruta dahil kailangan po nating aralin po yung ating mga kalsada aside from yung mga limitations din po natin sa mga LGUs.
Ma'am, hindi po ba natin ito napaghandaan ng maaga? You know, given that we were expecting things to be open by this month, by this time, that medyo maluwag-luwag na po yung restrictions, maraming pong lalabas. Ano po ba yung paghahanda na ginawa natin? Hindi po ba natin na plano po yan in advance?
Actually, ma'am, since July this year po, pinag-aaralan po namin ibalik po yung mga ruta. Actually nga, close to the pre-pandemic routes, na-revert na po natin lahat. Yan po yung nangyari po ngayong for the past months, nakapag-open po tayo ng mga ruta at nibalik po natin yung mga pre-pandemic routes po na nasuspend po during the pandemic time.
Okay, in the meantime po, ano pong solusyon para sa mga commuters natin na nagre-report ng overcharging, nakikipag-negotiate ng mga driver, hindi lang taxi, but as we're seeing also on social media, pati mga TNVS, sa apps pa lang, sa chat feature pa lang, nagtatawaran na. What exactly can our commuting public do to be protected as well as to be empowered?
We are aware po sa mga schemes group po ngayon ng mga private vehicles using po yung social media for booking passengers. Yun pong mga ganong klase po ng operation hindi po kinokondone o kaya sanction yan ng LTFRB kasi illegal po yan. Wala pong insurance, hindi po secured yung ating mga passengers. Kaya simultaneous po sa Oplanis na bero po namin, we also have intensified our colorum vehicle operations. To crack down nga po yung mga nangunguloro ngayon pong holiday season. For the past few days po, yung enforcement team po namin was able to apprehend and impound 6 colorum vehicles. And we are continuously looking at these situations to ensure po yung safety ng ating passengers.
Okay, maraming salamat po Ma'am Jocelyn, LTFRB Officer in Charge, Jocelyn Tataro. And after the break, television host and former reporter Daphne Osenya Paez has been named the new Malacanang press briefer. We will look into that and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching the big story here on One News. TV host and former news presenter Daphne Osenya Paez has been named Malacanang's press briefer. Osenya Paez, though, clarified that she will not act as the spokesperson of President Bongbong Marcos. She said her role is to communicate the administration's programs and other matters to the public. The new palace official is the daughter of Delio Osenya, who was the pilot of former President Marcos Sr.
My role here is to amplify and to communicate the message of President Marcos and the cabinet and the government. I will be here to brief you every Tuesday regularly after cabinet meetings.
Meanwhile, the camp of former BuCor officer Ricardo Zulueta has spoken up about his abrupt absence in the Bureau. Zulueta's lawyer, Lauro Gacayan, told the chiefs that BuCor Acting Chief Gregorio Catapang supposedly terminated his client as soon as Catapang assumed office. Gacayan said Zulueta was shocked when he found his successor inside his office without a formal turnover of functions.
According to him, there is no more reason to stay there. He has no longer any office to stay. He has no more position to discharge. So he left and returned to his place in Baguio City.
Cagayan also maintained that Zulueta is not in hiding. He noted that Zulueta has no reason to appear in court due to lack of documents. Zulueta, former BuCor Chief Gerald Bantag, and several others are currently facing murder charges in relation to the murder of broadcaster Percy Lapid.
I have to request a complete copy of all these documents from the lawyer of General Bantag because he was my former student and our law office is just less than 1 kilometer. After that, I confronted Colonel Zulueta and then I asked him to answer point by point all the allegations involving him so that I can prepare his counter affidavit.
For the big story in sports, the Ateneo Blue Eagles have reclaimed the UAAP basketball throne after outlasting the UP Fighting Maroons in the finals. Marty Bautista with the story.
And it is official now. Ateneo's redemption tour is complete. Back as the kings of UAAP men's basketball.
The Ateneo Blue Eagles regained the UAAP men's basketball throne after beating the UP Fighting Maroons in a do-or-die Game 3, 75-68.
This isn't intentionally.
UP was trailing by just 3 points in the final 12 seconds after a desperation 3 by Harold Alarcon, 70-67. But BJ Andrade's 2 clutch free throws in the ensuing possession effectively assured Ateneo's win. The Blue Eagles, who led the entire game, was ahead by as many as 20 points until UP slowly chipped into the lead via furious rallies in the third and fourth quarters. Ange Kuwame, the finals MVP, led the way for Ateneo with 19 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks. He got support from Fortsky Padricao and Vince Gomez, who had 12 points apiece.
Maraming salamat sa lahat to the Ateneo community. I love you all. Ateneo, this is for you.
Players, it's about them. I'm proud of them. My joy in this championship is a reflection of their joy. And I'm just so grateful for their effort. And, I'm the lucky guy.
The Blue Eagles will celebrate the title with a bonfire at their Loyola Heights campus. Meanwhile, the UP crowd caught a final glimpse of graduating forward Zave Lucero in uniform after checking in the final second of the game to take a technical free throw. Lucero was out for Game 3 after suffering a torn ACL in the previous matchup. James Spencer tried to step in Lucero's absence with 14 points, while Alarcon and Henry Galinato added 12 points each.
I was just happy to be able to step on the court one more time. I didn't like the way that I thought I was going to lead things. Whether we were going to win or going to lose, I did want to check in for one last time, and just to hear the support from the crowd and the UP community was it warmed my heart for sure, and that's something I'll remember for the rest of my life too.
This is Ateneo's 4th championship in the last 5 years after clinching their 6th straight finals appearance. They're also the first team to win at least 1 title in the last 3 decades. For News 5, Marty Bautista, We Are One News.
24 hours na. Nag-sync in na ba sa'yo?
Hats off to the Ateneo Blue Eagles. Oo naman.
1-1 tayo this year,
and,
di ba?
Yeah, and it was, at the end of the day, it was too deep of a hole at the first quarter. We didn't have Zave, but at the end of the day, Ateneo, as always, stable, real champions, well coached as always. But I have to say, nice gesture on the part of UP and even the Ateneo for cheering Zave Lucero and letting UP bow out with their heads held high.
At the end of the day, fans are happy. Ateneo UP in the finals, we're both happy. 1-1.
And we're looking forward again to 2023. But congratulations again to the Blue Eagles. And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business Toronto Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. Ako po si Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines, and happy holidays. We're down to our last 5 days before Christmas.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.